we're already in pressure where it's like economy is hot. They expect that to be factored into our latest forecast. Of course, it works. It's all relative, though. I mean, 30% growth on minus 25% a year ago. It's like, and it's funny. These are the guys with the big W-2s. It's, but you can't.
Hi, Frank.
Very good. Greg. Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg. Good evening. Went past your house today, Frank. Man. What do you say? Just have to solve it. Is it, there's that road just south of the Olivia Street that is that up for sale or someone sold? Because there used to be a dog in the picture windows. He would always watch me, right? Big like St. Bernard. He'd always be up there looking, and I always wave to him as I would ride by.
I had eye surgery for my 17th eye surgery. First job on Saturday.
Yeah, I just asked.
I was on medicine.
I just asked.
I was like,
No computers today?
so sick.
So you had surgery?
17th eye surgery.
Oh my God, I just like.
Yeah, I was gonna, you didn't, hey, you didn't put the laptops out? Do you have them?
Yeah, let's go.
Because
Anything I do, picture from jump through.
But you have a very good training.
I really wanted to go so bad, and I was so sick.
Give me a hand, Hannah.
just log in like you usually. Two more. Oh, yeah.
See? I brought my own.
Yeah. Oh, just. I have one.
I have it. So
They think that's what you want. I think being virtual throw everybody off.
I have so many.
Do you, being surgery? Good, what?
Eye surgery on Monday.
It's right on the front page of the website if you need to find it.
My 17th eye surgery. They know me. Like, oh.
Is it working?
That's nice, that first name.
Yeah.
You know your eyes well. So is this?
You ready? Get started.
Is this an end?
I have another one.
We'll call this special committee of the whole meeting to order. First order of business,
review policy 4118.31. Marianne is joining us virtually as she's on vacation. So we certainly appreciate you joining us, Marianne.
You're very welcome. I just want to give the board a brief overview on kind of the backdrop of where this policy is coming from. This is actually language provided to us by Shipman and Goodwin. It is not a CABE model policy. There is no model policy provided by CABE for this particular issue. It will eventually replace the current policy that you folks have in place, 5141.4. And it really belongs in the 4000 series because it's about the employee's responsibility for reporting suspicions of sexual assault or neglect on children. So it's more appropriate that it belongs in the 4000 series. And so that will eventually, once you get past the first read and on the second read, hopefully we'll approve this. We will pull that other policy because it will be redundant. This language is much, much denser than the current policy that we have in the 5000 series. We wanted you to have a true first read through it because it is so very lengthy and dense. Most of it actually is the appendices, which go up through the statutory definitions of all of the terms that are involved in this particular policy. You'll notice Appendix B and C are not mandated, or they're recommended because they can be very helpful for our staff. I'm going to be working closely with Allison Van Etten and the rest of the leadership team. Our goal this summer will be to put together an electronic handbook for staff so that as these policies are updated, that they can annually be provided to our teachers and our staff members for easy access, in a handbook kind of fashion, but in an electronic version. So we'll be working on that. Again, you're going to notice in section 18 of this particular document that there is reference to an unnumbered policy by the board. We're working with Rebecca right now to figure out whether or not we need an additional policy or we can refer to one of our existing policies about this content. And we also are going to ask her if our curriculum can be used as part of that awareness and prevention program, or if there needs to be yet another document to support that work. We certainly don't want to be creating unnecessary policies if we don't need them, but we want to do this right. So we will be coming back to you in June with more information on that as we move forward. But we wanted you to have a look at this. Tomorrow, Allison is going to be pushing out to you a very short training for you to actually take a look at before the next board meeting on mandated reporter training. We thought that would also help you to have an appropriate context to have a discussion about this and move forward on this particular policy. So again, it's not a K policy. This is language provided by Shipman and Goodwin to us, and it's the policy that we told you we would be bringing forward as part of the work with OCA and with Shipman and Goodwin. So I don't know if you have any particular comments on that. It's obviously very detailed with timelines, definitions, and if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, we would ask that you do that in conjunction with completing the training that Allison's going to be providing you before the next meeting.
So I have one question. Is there a need to, or maybe we've already done it, since this is involving certified and non-certified, do we have to have any discussions with union leadership, make them aware of it? I'm asking because I don't know the answer, and like I said, that may have already happened.
And that's a great question, Frank. We'll be moving forward as far as when we identify all the professional development that has to happen next year before the school year starts. We definitely will be having conversations about that with the union leadership. in addition to providing this new vehicle for access for the staff, this electronic binder. So we will have that once it's under construction and we have a little bit, we're a little bit further down the line on that. We definitely will do that with the leadership.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, so at this point, I just want to be clear on next steps, Marianne. So we will get a short training that we'll do before our board meeting in June. And it sounds like
Correct.
outside of, reading this, and I read it twice and I am going to read it again. Sounds like there's still some pieces that have to come together based on what you shared as far as discussions with Rebecca. Is that fair?
Correct. And what we want to do is create a crosswalk with all of the Title IX work that's happening, both through our health curriculum, the voice program, so that we can take a look at what is currently in place at each grade level and then see if that actually covers this awareness and prevention programming, or if we have to do something in addition to that policy-wise.
One last time, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I think we can move forward. So the next item on the agenda, I assume, Dr. Riley, you're going to cover, it's the 2021-2022 school calendar.
Yes, I'll actually combine those two items, the school calendar and the Wednesday schedule ideas. I wanted to bring to your attention something that we're looking at, and I hope to bring a final recommendation to you at the next board meeting. We've had a number of teachers, mental health staff, administrators asking for professional development time up front in the calendar so they can meet with, like grade level teachers can meet, and they can meet with their social workers and counselors and spend some time helping or identifying needs that our students have. We were even thinking of trying to do something where we had like all the Wednesdays in the first semester, something like that. That is the kind of need we have where we, not all day Wednesday, but like a short time, but sometime up front in the school year when like all the second grade teachers can meet together with the social work and talk about a student who's having trouble or is behind or needs some more help, those kinds of things. Where the student's succeeding, what we can do as a teacher, as a class, as a PE teacher, a music teacher, a social worker to help those students. And our teachers really need that time. On the other hand, we have a serious need to have as much instructional time as possible. So we can't like just take instructional time and put it into time for teachers to meet about student needs. So what we're looking at doing is maintaining as much instructional time as we currently have in a year, but taking some of those PD days that we have through the year or minimum days that we have throughout the year and taking some of that time and loading it up front into September and October so our teachers can get what they're asking for, which is time to talk about the needs of our individual students. We just can't wait until, we can't do what we typically do and have one PD day in October and another one in January. Our students deserve to have us paying attention to their emotional needs, their social needs, their academic needs up front as soon as we possibly can. So I don't have a specific recommendation, but I wanted you to know what we're working on. We're trying to balance these two very important needs for professional development time to discuss the needs of individual students, along with maintaining our instructional minutes throughout the year, because that's what we need this coming year. It'd be nice if we could have both of those, but that's not gonna happen. So I will be bringing the recommendation on how we can move some of that time up front in the calendar year so our teachers can discuss and have that time to to help identify needs so our students don't get behind or don't suffer emotionally. That's obviously very important for us to get the year off to the right start. That's the Wednesday idea. Whether it's Wednesday or Tuesday or Friday or whatever it is, the idea is putting professional development time up front in the calendar. So that's that concept. As far as the other issue, the school calendar, the recommendation that I'll be bringing on top of whatever we do with the Wednesday is that we start school on Wednesday rather than on Tuesday. And it's Wednesday, let me see, September 8th. And the reason for that is September 7th is the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And we would have, usually we don't worry about that because it's not the first day of school. Whenever it is, we have school and that's fine. It's a rotate, or it's not, it just happens whenever it happens. This year, it's the first day of school. We're trying to make sure every student is back in class, and we don't want to have some of our students out because of any reasons at all. And so what we were thinking, usually we do the week before Labor Day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as professional development days. And what I'm suggesting we should do Wednesday, Thursday, and then Tuesday, the 7th as professional development days. That way we'll have every student be able to be back in on the first day of school. So I would like any questions about those two ideas. I will be bringing back the actual detail, the calendar, and some suggestions for that Wednesday time for teachers to be able to discuss students. I'll be bringing back those ideas and recommendations at the next board meeting. But I wanted to find out about that Tuesday, September 7th as a PD day, and then everybody start on Wednesday. If there's any questions or concerns about that, this is a one-time thing. It's not something we would do every year. It's the first day of school after a pandemic, and it happens to be on that day. Next year it will be, the following week sometime. We'll just deal with that. So any questions on either of these? I'd be happy to entertain them, or suggestions, any ideas that you have that you'd like to share.
So just one, Dr. Riley, on how many professional development days are there currently during the calendar year, this school year?
We have 5 days total. We have 182 instruction plus 5. And we have 3 of those up front, and the other 2 are throughout the year. One of them is usually what is in this calendar, the election day. So that's a professional development day because we have voting in this building and at Dean's Mill. Then there's one other one throughout. I'd have to look at the calendar, but there's 2 throughout in the year. But then it's a number of minimum days, early release days. And what I'm saying is we'll look at those, the time we save on those 2, and try to move that time up front at the beginning of the year.
Got it. Okay. So, because I see there's still 3 professional development days and then 9 early release. So the math wouldn't add up there. That's something you guys would work on that to come up with.
Yeah, we'll still have about that. We'll have to see how sometimes we want school to end on a Friday and those kinds of things. But we'll still have 5 PD days, the 3 up front plus 2 other ones. Or we may use some of that time and have instruction those days and then have some shorter days up front. We're looking at both of those options. We're just trying to preserve. We have 900 hours required by the state for instruction, 900 hours per year. We're up to like 970, 975, something like that. We're going to try to maintain that. We have those extra 2 days above the 180 already. And I know talking to actually every one of you that I have talked to about this agrees we need to have instructional time. We can't just sacrifice instructional time. I've also talked with all the administrators, with Mike Freeman and others, and we all want to make sure we have classroom time. So we're not going to sacrifice that, but I want to come up with some way for teachers to have that ability to identify and work on student needs, that right up front, so we don't lose some kids during the first month.
Did you see those being structured days for the early release for the the staff? Like, will there be something they work towards, things they're reporting on in terms of mental health for the kids, or?
Yes, that's exactly what they'll do. And it will be different at each level. I was just talking to some teachers. I really get this push at the elementary. You have a kindergarten who hasn't even been there in school yet, and we don't know how they're going to act. We need to have time to make sure that we're talking about the needs of that individual, making sure we've done whatever we need to do to help them move on. It's not the same at the high school. They may not need to have that same level of discussion. They may want to do something with the grade level or something else. They will probably have more remote learning requests than the elementary. There was a bill that was passed in the Senate, the state Senate, has gone to the House that says districts must provide a remote option. There's no parameters. There's, how do you count attendance? Is it only for quarantine? Can they go back and forth every other day? On and on and on. Mary Ann and I talked to Heather Summers day before yesterday, and we were all three of us as frustrated about this because we don't have any idea what that means.
Right.
I was on a call today with the State Department, and they didn't know. You know, there's more guidance is coming. I mean, that seems to be the motto. So what that means, and then it was really focused on the middle and high school levels anyway. But we don't know. We don't know what that means yet. And we'll certainly keep this group informed and the Bears group return as we find out things. But the elementary, it's not so much remote at all. It's really, they just want to talk about, you know, I'm on that Wednesday, I'm a second grade teacher, and I have two students come in and they're just not, they hadn't been in school, or they've been in a hybrid or whatever it was. They just haven't been here. And what do we do if they're not doing well? And we need to get together, and we have mental health staff, we have our interventionists, we have our tutors. I mean, we have a lot of supports out there, but we need to get to those supports, you know, day one kind of thing, or at least, you know, as soon as we possibly can.
Any other board members have any comments?
I have a comment question. I don't know. I always thought that professional development days, you have a whole day so you could bring in speakers, do programming, meet with other districts. So I thought with the Learn calendar, everyone had PD days on the same day, so they could do these sort of joint team meetings with other schools. So are we going to get rid of that? I'm not saying I don't see a need for this. I certainly see a need for it, but I'm worried at the expense of getting rid of actually what I consider professional development of you know, conference seminars, workshops.
Van, can I take that one?
No, you're in North Carolina, sorry. No, of course, yes, please, Marianne.
Most of that model, Elisa, has kind of evolved over time. And so a lot of our professional development is involved with EastCon, who actually comes and does embedded professional development throughout the year, so that it's not just a standalone, and that we can revisit the skills and provide the teachers the support they need throughout the year, so we actually improve practice. So the idea that these Wednesdays, or whatever day they would be smaller chunks of time to support that work ongoing, in addition to doing this RTI, getting kids the intervention and having those conversations to look at our data in real time, so that we're starting off strong right out of the gates. It would also allow us to do our DEI work that the teachers have asked, DEI work.
We lost her. Yeah. No, we lost you, Marianne, but I understand what you're saying. We do both, but we don't, these regional PD days have gone away because they really weren't focused on what we need. You know, we have EastCon, those first 3 days, since I've been here, they used to have like a full day or even more of district. We're down to an hour because teachers need to go to their schools, they need to work together. And then this year in particular, they have some special ed IEP training they have to go through. They have DEI work that we're working on that they have to do. And then hopefully that Tuesday, the 7th, they would work on, they'd get together and predict, these students we think may have issues that have already shown that they have some needs. So that's what we do. We're looking at our individual students along with the EastCon assistance that they provide, but it's really direct for our schools, for our classrooms, for our individual teachers.
I can also speak from Learn's perspective too, because over the years, their professional development business has basically declined. And teachers and districts just aren't interested in the type of professional development they used to do. And they want sort of like very targeted, specific information about whatever it is that they're interested in. That's sort of particular to their school district or their school or their classroom. So the whole they used to have a whole professional development department to provide PD around the Learn area. It's been disbanded essentially. They don't even really do it that way any longer because
remember we used to always talk about when we see the plan for PDs or extra projects so on. It seems like there's a lot of going that way.
For instance, at our leadership team yesterday, Tina Eisenbeis came in and showed us part of our new Eureka math that's going to really be helpful for teachers. And that was her first take and our first look at it. But that's the kind of thing that we'll spend some time during those PD days. So our teachers have the knowledge and the training on things that will help them immediately in the classroom rather than going to a regional something. They really don't do that anymore. I mean,
Are there any other questions or comments? Just as you guys build out the specifics, I think just, it makes sense, but at the same time, I think we have to be mindful of there's more early release days. So when we think about what that means for parents and childcare and all that type of stuff, and then I think just the timing of some of them, the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Christmas, I can't imagine anybody's really doing much professional development on days before holidays like that. So maybe just, timing of some of those, right? I know I'm not doing a lot those days myself. So, but no, I get it. I think that's mixing it up and not doing back to back and things like that. I think, would be easier on some of the families and the communities. And then as far as the first day of school moving to September 8th, consensus, the board's good with that. So I guess I'm still not told, are we doing it because it's Rosh Hashanah? Like I'm not totally clear why.
Because Rosh Hashanah lands on that day this year. It doesn't usually, and we're coming out of people. We just feel of all the years, everybody needs to be, all the students need to be in school that first day if at all possible. It's not necessarily, I don't know the count, but I know it's the first day of the holiday and there will be a number of students who cannot come because of that. So we're thinking we can move the PD to that day and it's not going to affect us that much, but it would certainly help those families.
Gotcha. Okay.
Quick question.
Good.
Depending on how this remote learning plays out next year, this year there have been some good things about COVID, not many, but one is that when we had a snow day, kids had their laptops and it wasn't a big deal. We didn't push from the 17th to the 18th of June or from the 24th to the 25th. Is there a way we can somehow still harness, or will we have some kind of remote system in place where students will be able to, on a snow day?
That makes so much sense. We've suggested that. Every educator that I know has suggested that. At least have that option. Again, there are no parameters coming from the state yet to allow us to do that. Could we count it as attendance? I mean, there's all these issues. So we hope we can do that. We might as well do that. We're all set up to do that. Our tech people have one-on-one for everybody to do that. So we're ready. And that would be the situation. The other thing that we're going to have to deal with, and we've been talking about it with the Bears group, is quarantining, because we will have some groups of students. It could be 3 students, it could be a whole class that have to quarantine. And right now it's 10 days, maybe it's 7, who knows where it's going to be. But if they're home, we don't want to just send here, read this book or do this worksheet. That's, we have the ability to be with them during the day. So not with the same teacher, but, having another teacher work with them or a para or whatever. So we're hoping that we'll have some say in how this remote learning can happen. And we would all agree with you, especially those snow days. And it keeps your calendar, you know where you are. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but we'll see.
And I would just add to that, Jack, like if we were to do it, like I love the idea of doing some snow days virtually, but I think we also need to maybe a balance or maybe a cap because the kids look forward to the snow days too, right? So, we don't want to totally replace if it's a day or two, right? Like maybe they still get a snow day, but we don't need to do 7 distance learning days, in my opinion. Right? So just something to think about.
Yeah, some districts are deciding 2 days or 3 days, and then after that, they're postponing. We can come up with some policy on that.
Cool. All right, so I think from a first day of school perspective, it sounds like the board is supportive of that, and then you'll bring back whatever that front loading of the early release days looks like. All right, Marianne, you're back just in time. You ready?
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Sure.
So we're going to get started with more policy review here. These tie into the bylaws. The only one that is not going to be ready to discuss tonight is 9230. And that's about the board orientation. I think there's more work that needs to be done before we bring that forward. So we'll table discussion on that tonight. But I think all the other ones are ready to go, Marianne. So I think what you gave us or what's attached to the link on the agenda, these are the recommendations, correct?
Correct.
So the first policy that we're talking about is 9130. That focuses on committees and the ability of the board to set up committees and how they work. Were there any major changes there in the existing policy, or was there not an existing policy? I don't have my policy book with me.
This was pretty much consistent with what was there before, but I know that Craig had mentioned that he really had a strong feeling about that the policy should reflect the reality of how the board operates. And I don't recall, if you look in that third paragraph, that it speaks to each committee shall make its annual report at the meeting prior to the first regularly scheduled meeting in December. I don't recall that being a past practice, so I didn't know if you wanted to strike that from the policy, or if you wanted to move forward with the model as is.
I mean, I'll defer to the board. My preference would be similar to what Craig has voiced in the past. I mean, that has not, in my tenure on the board, that has not been practice. So my bias would be to remove it, but I'll defer to the rest of the board and how they feel.
I agree.
Okay. All right, so let's remove that sentence.
So we'll bring that back with that edit made for the June meeting.
Any other comments or questions on 9130? Go ahead. Marianne, were you going to say
the
something?
Next one, 91. Yeah, I was just going to move on to the next one, Frank.
Okay, go ahead.
The next one is new to our bylaws since we didn't have a committee of the whole before. And so that's just a really straightforward statement. Basically, the board is a committee of the whole, and the committee of the whole is the board with the same kind of powers in all of these meetings. So that's a technicality, I guess, to have that included in your bylaws.
Makes sense. Any questions on 9131? Okay.
The next one, there was a change, I think, just the committees and the advisory committees to updated the committee as a public entities, and that CABE language was not part of your old model. So this is again, a suggestion.
So that's the last piece, committees as public entities.
Correct, correct. Any questions on that one?
Pretty straightforward to me. I mean, unless board members have any questions or concerns.
One question I had is I didn't notice in any of these that they had a provision for a chair of the committee. Is it maybe something that falls under Robert's rules or?
Craig, can you speak into the mic? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm saying that I didn't notice that there was any provision for choosing or how the chair of a committee would be chosen. And I didn't know if that was a problem, not explicitly saying how the chair is chosen. I mean, the standard protocol doesn't seem to include it, but then I just wondered if.
I mean, we could put something in there because isn't that something that the board chair assigns once the committees are formed after the election? And basically my understanding was it was always kind of an informal poll of what the interests were amongst the groups.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's sort of a mystery, isn't it?
Yeah. If you want, Craig, I can actually ask Rebecca. We'll be having some conversations about the other policy. I can ask her if she has any model language for that.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if maybe it's just supposed to follow Robert's Rules of Order and then maybe so that's why maybe it's not explicit.
That is mentioned, and that is mentioned in another policy, another bylaw, Robert's Rules.
Yeah, so why don't we ask Rebecca that question and see what she comes back with?
Okay. I can't, if you folks could use the microphones, it'd make it easier to hear.
If we could find that policy where it says we're under Robert's rules, because I've looked.
Yeah.
And it didn't come up in my search. It could be a Google, it could be a PDF issue.
Okay.
You know, like it wasn't a text formatted thing.
Okay.
We should get that in there if it's not.
Yeah, that's
But
important.
definitely.
All right, so the next one is.
So Frank, can I just ask about formation of committees? Maybe this is the correct place to ask about this, but we once discussed about creating an athletic committee to talk about equitable money allocations and what sorts of needs that the different athletics needed. So if that was still an interest of ours, how do we propose that be put together and where does that come in?
So, I mean, we can form, the board can decide what committees, yeah, anytime you want. So if this board feels like, you know, I would suggest, you know, September-ish when, you know, we're on the other side of the summer, but, you know, that's a conversation the board can have. And if the board wants to go that way, then you can form it. And then who's on that committee, kind of like we did with the ad hoc committee that you're a part of.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of questions. It all really was initiated around the rowing concerns. And then everyone started talking about all the other different athletics. And do you move on it to be equitable, or do you move on it to what is equitable? How do you measure equitable, particularly financial apportionment? So I think that's still an important thing for us to talk about because we didn't really resolve anything.
Yep, and I think that the athletic committee did, you know, more than that as well, Lisa. I mean, I know you were, when I first came on the board, you were part of it.
high school level and elementary middle. Sort of, we didn't talk that much about content of the programs. You know, this team should get this team should get that, and I never saw us on our call. We talked a lot about, at the time, it was concussions were really big. We talked about concussion testing. We had to have mandated concussion reports every season. We talked about the fields were big then.
Yep.
That's when we started the field project, and field usage was a huge issue.
So what was the point of the athletic committee? It was just to address issues that happened to come up, or did you explore issues to?
We didn't need that much, but we had maybe a quarter.
Yeah, so I think I made a note here about the athletic committee. I'll add it to a meeting as we get closer to the start of the school year, and we can flush it out and talk through it.
Yeah, I think they still have to do that. I know we talked about things like, should this particular sport be required to wear a helmet? We got the whole helmet. That was part of the concussion discussion. And what are other people doing? Any other, you know, those are the kind of, they were big. Yeah. Drug testing, that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, I notated it. I'll add it to the agenda and we can flush it out. And if the board wants to move in that direction, then we'll populate that committee. Okay.
Maybe we look at it during our retreat to prioritize, you know, what committees we have, because we just don't want to get scope creep when we have 11, you know, committees and, you know, they're half attended, right? So maybe during our retreat, we look at what committees we have, suggestions, and just prioritize it and limit it to, you know, a certain number, so at least we be productive and effective.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think that makes sense. All right, Mary Ann, next one is 9150.
Sure, this is giving. I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
No, you're fine.
Okay, this gives the board authority to actually appoint members of the board to other town boards or committees or commissions for appointments lasting for 1 year. So I don't know, again, if this is something historically that you feel should be there or shouldn't be there, or if you'd like to preserve the flexibility for future boards to have this authority.
Can you explain what that looks like and sort of the purpose of it? So I don't think we have it now, so I'm not really
sure. So who sits on the retirement board? Yeah, so I mean, there are various boards or committees or commissions that'll be formed from time to time. In my tenure as board chair, the first time, they would ask for us to appoint a board member to that board or commission. Retirement board is one that meets regularly, that we do have a board of ed member appointed to. So, I mean, we did not have this policy in the past, correct?
I don't believe so. And I think this is just kind of memorializing a practice that gives you that flexibility. You know, commissions that might even, you know, be formed from, you know, different initiatives from the state level as well as local issues.
So does anybody have any concerns or feelings one way or the other?
I think it's good to have it as a policy. I mean, that's just so it's there.
The term probably is, Craig, that one term.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the term is the key piece, because like the retirement board, that's not a 1 year term. right? So, but I think it memorializes a practice. You know, there is a practice of Board of Education being asked to appoint members to various boards and commissions, whether they're ad hoc or in the case of the retirement board, which is a recurring functioning board of the town.
Okay, so that one looks like it can go forward as is. The next
Just wondering if we address the time limitation of a year, because again, like I said, the retirement board, I know I was on that when I first came onto the board, and that wasn't a one-year term. You know, it was, my time on the board was,
I mean, it could be, you know, you could make it, I mean, it's nice to have a sunset provision in these things, just so.
if
like,
a board
the
member wants to
option of-
cycle off.
You can always reappoint someone if they want to continue.
Yeah, that's what it doesn't say that it's, you know, only a one-year term. You can have somebody that has actually re-upped for the next year.
We can leave it as is. I'm okay with it if the rest of the board is.
Okay, the next one is 9150, which actually outlines the procedure processes for securing consultants, which has been a past practice. Kind of, it gives you some outlines of the possible scenarios that you might want a consultant to work with you, and then the ideas of the scope of work and the parameters under which that would happen from a process standpoint. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, pretty common practice. Board members have any concerns or questions on that policy?
My only question is should we reference the approval process if it requires signing a contract, or if there's a dollar amount, or that's a de minimis figure where you don't have to do something? I don't know. It seems somewhat incomplete to me because it doesn't reference sort of like the approval process in terms of, or especially if there's a cost involved. So I don't know if that should just be somewhere in the policy manual. I'm sure there's something about what needs to be approved at what cost level, and that, and we just link it in with that policy.
Okay. We'll pull that aside. If I can find some other language that would clean that up, Craig.
Any other comments on 9150? All right, 9210.
So this is just the qualification of board members. Again, it's under state law. It's pretty much defined as what the qualifications are.
Nobody has
Not much-
questions on that,
not
right?
much-
It's pretty
I
straightforward.
think you won't meet the age requirement, I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
And then the next one is on election of members.
The student members, right? I didn't know that we actually elected a student member. I thought it was just automatically the head of the student government. So we actually have kids who can put in applications.
This
and
is
overseen.
This is a change, Heidi. In the past, it has been a pro facto student government. And the thought was that we would like this to be a little bit more inclusive so that kids who might not have that role, but are interested in public service and interested in town politics would have that opportunity to put their name in and go through a process where they would have a chance to serve in that role.
No, I understand that. I didn't know that we actually did that. Have we done that for the last couple of years, or is this a new idea?
so does this mirror the practice? I
This
don't know.
this would be a change in practice, which we would like to see to be more inclusive, Frank. So that the historical practice has been that student government was just an automatic seat on the board.
Yeah, and then you and I had that conversation because Lily came up to me after the last board meeting and was asking the question about, does it need to be somebody elected to student government, because there is somebody who's interested in serving next year and is not a member of student government. And I actually thought that was a great thing
I think that's
to
actually.
get more kids involved and somebody that actually has, you know, the passion to want to do it. So I think that opening it up, I think makes a lot of sense to get more people involved.
I actually feel a little differently about it. I feel like the member that serves with us is elected by the entire student body. And therefore, I like the fact that it's not somebody that we handpicked. It's somebody that was chosen by their peers. And to me, that you know, carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, I think she's obviously a really good resource. But if maybe that's not something that she wants to do, is to attend a lot of board meetings. But if somebody's really invested in the idea of board meetings, she still could coordinate or cooperate with the.
Oh, absolutely. If they're not interested, but I think it should be, this is my opinion, it should be offered to them.
Oh, absolutely. And
yeah.
then,
And if they don't want it, then absolutely.
yeah.
So it should be
And
something.
then
Yeah.
thrown out to the others, which sounded like Lily, that's what Lily was talking about.
Well, then I guess I agree with you.
I think it should be open to anybody who wants to do it.
I mean, we could certainly have the student government president apply. I mean, there's nothing to preclude that person, who would obviously be a strong candidate. But I think the idea of our whole DEI work is to be more inclusive and to provide opportunities. There's not to say that we're going to have 50 candidates that are interested in that, but it might be an opportunity for somebody who, you know, found that interest later on in their high school career. And the other thing is, it's opening it up to juniors and seniors rather than it would just be a senior.
I would like to see it open to everybody. It's not like, I mean, they're gonna still have to go through a process. They said they have to submit a resume, they have to meet with the superintendent, so,
I like it.
you know, opening it up to everybody
Yeah.
gives more people a chance to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of-
And if
Because it's
they,
always the same
They
thing.
can always run for student council president.
yeah,
That's open to everybody, correct?
yeah. Totally. And if they don't.
It's a little
get it,
different.
maybe this is something they
It's a
want
different time commitment,
instead.
right? I mean,
So
Right.
I think that it.
I don't feel that strongly about it. I like the fact that that it's somebody that is not handpicked by us, honestly, because we're, you know, it
Right.
comes from the
I hear you.
students. Anything that comes from the students in terms of representing them, it should come from them. And so that's just my feeling, but I'm just throwing out the idea that that's how,
Yeah.
it's not, it's fine.
So should it only be chosen by the superintendent, or maybe we look at the applications too, since it's going to be on this board? I think
We could interview them.
What?
Well, we could always interview them.
Yeah. So we would let them know what it is, the expectation and stuff, that it would be a whole new kind of a situation for them.
I mean, like Marianne said, I don't think we're gonna have hundreds of
No,
applicants.
I
It's
don't.
probably talking about one person who's
Right,
not
right,
on the
right,
student government.
exactly. But to be invested in it is sort of a nice idea. Maybe that's the springboard and stepping stone into becoming head of the student council.
Is it possible to find out how other districts do this as well too? I'm sort of agnostic on whether it's an appointed or elected position, but I also feel like I don't have any experience with the phenomena. So I don't know if have there been problems in districts where they've been elected or not, or has it caused issues, or, you know, interviewing student candidates? Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just don't, to me, it's an unknown, and I'd like to get some input from people who maybe have had experience with this to inform my decision.
So Mary Ann, why don't we pull it back?
So I think, Okay, I just like to respond to that, and that if the CABE model is this, that this is the CABE model where you actually have kids go through the process go through the principal and the superintendent, the kids who are interested. So that to me tells me that that is probably more common practice, but I can again do what I did with Jack's concern. I can go to the usual suspects around the area and then pull those policies, and you can take a look at what our neighbors do.
And I would be happy to hear what the administrators have to say about different formats of putting students on the board. If they, I think it's good to hear if there are concerns or recommendations they have in that regard as well. So if anybody wants to chime in on that at any point too, I'm happy to hear what people have to say in that regard.
I mean, I think it would be good if, from Mark's perspective as the high school principal, right? I mean, what are his thoughts? And I think from my perspective, I mean, I love the idea of having a student representative on the board, but I've sat on boards of education where we've had a student rep and they're not engaged at all, and I think if we're going to have a student rep, they can bring a valuable perspective to the work that we do, and we want them to be engaged.
What is it now? The president of the student body?
Yeah, I think typically, that's what's happening. And I mean, more times than not, it's, great. We've had great, students on the board. There have been a few where, they haven't, been as, engaged, and, we try to pull, I know when I was on the board last, we would try to engage them in the topics where, that perspective was something that would really add to the discussion. And we've had some that have been very active.
Maybe it's just a member of the student body, not predetermined to be the president, right? Maybe you have somebody that's a little bit more involved, that's the secretary or the treasurer, right? But to Jack's point, it's still an elected.
Well, you can also throw that as another item on the ballot, rep to the Board of Ed, and the president
Could do that too. Yeah.
I think it's good if they came before the Board of Ed as well as the superintendent and the principal, because we know what our expectation or hope would be for a student to become involved. I know with Lily particularly, we became much more involved with what she was going to present and how she was going to present it. She became pretty enthusiastic about it by December, because she understood what we wanted to have happen.
I would just say, my daughter Caroline was the rep for a year.
Yep.
And she ran for student council president. And one of her reasons for running was she wanted to be here on Thursday night. So, yeah, I'm saying this with her in mind.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so she could run for that and as well put her application in, which would show,
Yeah.
I see it as just a ticket of commitment.
Yeah.
Because
I hate, I like the fact, and I don't feel that strong, I mean, it's just for discussion. I like the fact that, the student body chooses the person. It's not just you can have, when Lily speaks about, I don't know, a parking issue, I feel like she's coming at it from, she ran maybe a student council meeting.
Right.
And, maybe got some feedback from students.
Right.
It's not, coming from a place where there's no resources, so, but again, I only mention it because my own daughter was the rep, and she really wanted to be,
But
sit on
that really does make sense, because the point of us having here is we want somebody who's representative of the student body, not somebody who appeals to some adults.
Right.
So
Right.
it was really coming in and is authentically,
exactly.
very much, because when I was in the cafeteria, this is what they were talking about.
Exactly.
I don't think there's going to be hundreds of people.
Yeah, no.
One-time thing. I do like the idea of opening it up to people who, it's not the same people.
So Marianne's going to do some research and she'll come back to us, and then we can address it how we want to move forward at that point.
I think the other piece, Frank, that you and I had discussed earlier is that when you're talking about the orientation for the board members, not to forget that the student member needs to have a very unique kind of orientation and to understand what those parameters are. So that might be another topic for you
Yeah.
folks to entertain.
Can we,
Yeah.
sorry, can we go back to 9210 for 1 second? The qualifications of the board members. Do they really have to be a citizen?
Good name of the United States.
No, I think of the town. I think of the town is the citizenship.
It says a citizen of the United States.
But do you have somebody that you're going to propose?
No, but I don't know why, like, if you are a
9210.
voting member, that you don't have to be a citizen to be a voting member of the town. Right, they don't ask you for a citizen, a passport, you have to own property in town to vote, right?
I don't know.
Like, am I understanding, right, you don't have to be a
It has to
citizen.
be a citizen to vote too.
I think so.
You just register to vote, like, really?
Yeah, but you can't register to vote unless you're a citizen,
Gotta be a citizen.
Do you really?
right?
No, that's not
Illegal
true.
immigrants can't vote.
In some places they can.
Well,
California, they can, right?
maybe.
You just walk in.
Let's just talk about that.
They
Okay.
can't vote.
So, I was just trying to remember, like, when I registered to vote, like, did I have to prove I was a citizen?
I sense a revolution coming on.
I guess I did. How did I do that when I registered to vote? I had a driver's license, social security number, that's what it is, right? It's a social security number. Yeah, that's what it is, okay. I know, it's been so long. but-
So 9221 filling vacancies.
This is an updated CABE model, so it does have some updated language for you to consider there. Again, a lot of this, because these policies haven't been looked at in, since the 90s, half of them. This is, keeping in keeping with the updated laws, et cetera.
So is this consistent with the town charter?
Anywhere there was a reference to the town charter, I updated the reference. It wasn't specifically mentioned in the model policy or the previous policy.
Yeah.
I can't hear anybody.
You should double check. There was a discrepancy between this one and the town, what it said in the town charter, and I'm pretty sure the town changed the charter to be consistent with state law, which is this one.
And that was changed, I think, in November of 2015. That was the updated charter.
Charter was
Yes.
15, right?
Yep.
Yeah. 15
Okay.
or 16, yeah. I think they changed it to be consistent with this.
So we're good on this one.
Yep.
Okay. The next one, 9222, this is Craig and I had an exchange on this one. There was actually some illegal language in the model about removing board members, which you cannot legally do by a 2/3 vote. And so I took the model absent the unenforceable language, and that's what you have as a draft on 9222.
So I didn't hear what did you do? You took that sentence out?
There was language in the model that said a board member could be removed from office by a 2/3 vote of the board. And I checked 3 times with Nick because I knew that didn't sound right. And it's not a legal, it's not enforceable. So it doesn't make any sense to have it in a model policy or your policy if it's not enforceable.
It's still in the draft. It still says removal from office.
That you don't have the latest electronic version, the one that was sent you the last
Yeah,
batch.
it's not in the electronic version, right?
Got it.
Asked this question before. To 9214. I meant to ask this before, I'm sorry. When does the term start? Because it's in italics. Are we actually putting in the second Thursday? So at our next meeting.
Yeah, it has the second Thursday in November.
So that's what we're using. We're using the second Thursday in November.
Correct.
Because
Probably because of how the elections fall, that makes sense. And that's where your board meeting is.
Elections the first Tuesday, elections are the first Tuesday in November. After November 1st. I don't know why I knew that.
I was wondering if this was regulated by the new town charter.
I don't know, but I'd rather see it, like, what if we had a special, if the election's on Tuesday, we meet not the 2 days later, the following Thursday. What if there's a special meeting in between? I would just say, I don't know, it starts immediately, or as soon as you get sworn in, right? I mean, is there a reason to stop, to wait a week and a half?
Well, I think you're limited to the statute of the charter. I don't think, so I just.
And the Board of Ed, would that just be up to us, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think it's.
Can we look into that a little bit? Like when the term can start?
There's also a typo there. It says tier, and I think there's an H missing under oath of office.
Because there was a time where the election was Tuesday and we met on Thursday.
And when do you typically get sworn in?
It's what?
When do you typically get sworn in?
Walk down to the town hall whenever you want. I got sworn in like Wednesday morning. I think I got sworn in for the first meeting. You can, but you just have to walk down to the town hall. They can swear you in whenever you want.
So is there a recommendation on language that I can take forward? Because I don't want to do tons of research, on each one of these. So is there language that you want me to hunt down with either against the town charter or?
Well, I actually thought it said in the town charter when our term started. That's my recollection.
Right, so let's check that.
So, but I guess you could ask Nick too, if maybe it's a state statute, but I was pretty sure, I thought I saw it in the town charter, the new town charter.
Okay, I'll check.
I mean, I'd rather it start immediately. That minute. The next morning, Wednesday morning.
All right, so 92-22 we were okay with? Okay. All right, and then next item, future agenda items. Jack, we have the AP report, summer school update, and then there's a curriculum review for internship, AP English, language composition, food service, annex program. Any other items that the board would like to add?
Hey, Marianne, when is middle school, elementary school music gonna percolate to the surface in terms of doing the curriculum?
I don't have the.
You already done it, and I'm embarrassing myself.
No. I know that we have had extensive outside consultants working on that, but we've had some personal issues with staff members that have delayed the middle school component. But there are some other ones that are under development. So I have to get back to you, Jack, on the exact dates, but I know that we've been working on those.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Before we go into make a motion for executive session, I just would like to wish Superintendent Van Riley a happy 70th birthday, which is I believe tomorrow. So happy birthday, Dr. Riley.
Today?
Tomorrow. Okay, so we'll entertain. You asked for too much. Jack was supposed to bake it. All right, so a motion to go into executive session to discuss Superintendent Van Riley's evaluation, and Dr. Riley be a part of that discussion, please. Motion made, there's a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
My friend is 80 on Monday. Yeah. My friend's a big deal.
so many things that the last few weeks.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
If there were no votes taken in executive session, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
There's a motion made, there's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion